I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on Wealthy Wednesdays. Our very special guests I will introduce shortly, but I want to share with you a scene that happened just 3 blocks from my home yesterday. Yesterday, ICE was in my neighborhood. I live on East 72nd Street, right off of South Shore Drive. I literally can walk less than 10 paces from my front door, and I'm on South Shore Drive. East 72nd Street. This occurred on East 75th.
War scene. Windows. Witnesses describe it as a war scene. Windows and doors blown off as dozens of people living in a South Shore apartment, including children, were detained by federal agents during targeted immigration enforcement.
They pulled up in budget trucks, SWAT tanks.
The sound of flashbangs startles a community out of its sleep in the Citizen app video.
This was crazy. It felt like we were under siege last night.
As federal agents were seen marching through the streets of South Shore early Tuesday morning.
My building is shaking. So I'm like, what is that? Then I look out the window, it's a Black Hawk helicopter. I was out there crying when I seen the little girl come around the corner. Because they was bringing the kids out too. Had them zip tied to each other.
The FBI confirming to ABC7 as agents were helping Border Patrol carry out a targeted immigration enforcement operation at this apartment complex on the corner of 75th and South Shore Drive.
As I was walking from the bus, I was headed to my apartment. As I got to my unit to stick my key in the door, I was grabbed by an officer. And I said, what's going on? What's going on? He never actually told me. He just said I was being detained.
They counting all us up in the back there on the other side. And it wasn't no room to move nowhere.
They had the black people in one van and the immigrants in another van.
Border Patrol Commander at Large Gregory Bovino with his officers speaking on the ground in an exclusive interview with News Nation.
How much you live in the apartment next door to Trinidad Aragua members that are trafficking and prostitution, guns, drugs, and taking advantage of American citizens in a violent way.
Destruction left behind inside the complex with doors blown off of their hinges and holes left in the walls. Immigrant advocates and elected officials gathering to condemn the overnight operation.
We're trying to bring people in and trying to fight so we can all stay in this neighborhood, but that can't happen when we have people pulling us out of our beds at night.
While immigrant advocates say they believe about 30 to 40 people were detained, federal authorities have not confirmed that number, so it's unclear how many people were held and possibly arrested. Ward, ABC7 Eyewitness News.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580, less than 3 blocks from my home. This activity took place yesterday on the South Shore neighborhood. I live in South Shore on East 72nd Street, on 75th Street, on East 75th Street in South Shore. ICE raids. They pulled up, according to my neighbors, in budget trucks, unloaded themselves, dozens of FBI agents, Border Patrol agents in the inner city. I live in the heart of the inner city. This isn't just any old neighborhood. They are right here knocking on our doors and terrorizing communities. And interestingly enough, from many of my neighbors, they said they loaded the immigrants in one budget truck under arrest with zip ties on them. The other budget truck was loaded with African Americans who couldn't possibly be the byproduct of immigration enforcement in South Shore. But a busload, a U-Haul budget truckload of African Americans were taken out of South Shore at the same time that they took immigrants out of our neighborhood here on the south side of Chicago. While we will have a very, very important conversation with my very good friend, Carrie Gordy, and Mr. Ed Sullivan's granddaughter when we come forward after the break, I did want to report to you what is taking place in Chicago. There is a sense that there is a terror regime led by the President of the United States, Mr. Holman, ICE, the Department of Homeland Security, and it is terrorizing our neighborhoods. And they come in the middle of the night to do just that. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward with Carrie Gordy.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hello, KBLA delegation. Tavis Smiley here. On Saturday, October 25th, LA Trade Tech becomes the epicenter of ideas that matter. The Left Coast Forum is bringing together voices that challenge, inspire, and illuminate with keynote presentations from people like noted economist Richard Wolff, the man who breaks down capitalism in ways that make sense to working folk like you and me, and Dr. Cornel West will be there, the brilliant philosopher and activist who never stops fighting for justice and speaking truth to power and to the powerless for that matter. So this isn't just another conference. This is where ideas get tested, where the conversations that shape our future begin. Multiple plenary sessions, dynamic speakers, real talk about the issues that impact our communities, and then some good food and a live band. Saturday, October 25th, LA Trade Tech, Left Coast Forum. The event is free and open to the public, but you must register at our KBLA1580.com website, where you can also peep the plenary topics. The future belongs to those who show up and engage. So don't just think about change, be part of the conversation that creates it. The Left Coast Forum is brought to you by the LA Progressive, the Empowerment Congress, Community Coalition, Partnership for Growth LA, Southwest Voter Registration Education Project, LA Care Health Plan, United Teachers Los Angeles, Black Progressive Action Coalition, St. John's Community Health, the National Lawyers Guild, the Weingart Foundation, and more. Space is limited, so if I were you, I'd register right now at KBLA1580.com. Your voice matters, your presence matters. We'll see you there.
Agnes was in deep trouble with the IRS.
I owed the IRS a lot of money. I did not know what I was going to do. I was scared.
Agnes caught a break and found out about Optima Tax Relief.
But when I called Optima Tax, they guaranteed me that they were going to help me out the best that they can. And they did.
Optima stopped the IRS.
No more telephone calls, no more letters. Optima Tax took care of everything. I can finally sleep at night. I was stress-free.
Agnes was finally free from her IRS nightmare.
It was like a burden was lifted off of me, and it was a great feeling.
Are you in deep trouble with the IRS? You might want to listen to Agnes.
I would refer Optima Tax Relief to anyone because they got me debt-free from owing the IRS any more money.
Call Optima right now for your free consultation. Call 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077.
Optima Tax Relief.
Testimonial from an actual client. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Just a couple of short months ago, one of our very special guests was Kerry Gordy. Kerry, affectionately known as KG, was born in Detroit, Michigan, the same year that his father, Berry Gordy, started Motown Records. He grew up around all of the major stars such as Diana Ross, Stevie Wonder, Smokey Robinson, Marvin Gaye, and Michael Jackson. He started in the mailroom at Motown and worked in every division of A&R, to publish, marketing, to business affairs. And while at Motown, he wrote and produced songs for The Temptations, The Four Tops, and Billy Preston. The first hit he had as an executive with Motown was with his brother Rockwell's Somebody's Watching Me. KG was also known as the leader of the 1980s teen idol band Apollo. KG as a producer recently released Sunday's Best and How Ed Sullivan Opened Doors for Black America. He previewed that show on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show here on KBLA Talk 1580, and it has been received with wild success. We're here to congratulate KG on that extraordinary accomplishment. KG, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Hey, man, I love you.
I love you too, brother. And my producer, Gina, said she loves you too. How you doing, brother?
You know what? My life is amazing. I went through a little bit of a health ordeal, as you can see, but I'm past it now, and things are going incredibly well for me right now from a business perspective.
We are certainly excited to hear that you've overcome your health challenges and you remain constantly on our prayers. Share with us how Sunday's Best was received.
Okay. the reception has been amazing. And I want to give a lot of thanks to you and Gina for being the people who believed in the absolute total beginning. And that is, you know, having friends like that is just amazing, because I had been on your show 3 times, and and you guys just, you know, welcomed me with warm, you know, just with open arms, and helped me navigate, let's call it the whole urban aspect of the whole urban universe of everything, and hooked me up with people, and you guys were just so amazing. And the result of it has been, one, we've been received incredibly well at Netflix. 2, we've been received incredibly well by Rotten Tomatoes. We've been received incredibly well by People Magazine, 5 stars, Forbes Magazine, Rolling Stone. It's been an incredible ride. We've gotten, I have not gotten, this is the first time I think I've ever done a project that I've gotten 0 negatives on. I mean, everything is amazing, shockingly amazing. And I'm being bombarded with requests to do production deals with people, and produce and executive produce other things that I'm now in the turn down mode. I have to turn everything down, because these things that I'm being presented don't meet the standards of, you know, of what I've done this far with this and Biz Marquis and Rick James. It's just amazing. So I have to thank you guys for being the let's call it the catalyst, and the harbinger for all of this amazing success that we're having.
I want to give some credit, an amazing amount of credit, to KBLA and Tavis Smiley, because he's given us a platform that allows us in Los Angeles and around the country and around the world to bring people with your extraordinary qualifications and gifts onto the show and to expose your extraordinary work. I do want to talk about the documentary for a moment, because it is both entertaining. It exposed us to aspects of many celebrities, but also change agents, if you will, change agents in our own community. Some of the turmoils and the troubles that they've had to go through that we may not appreciate while we listen to their music, but what was really taking place behind the scenes. And more specifically, Ed Sullivan. I never saw, when I was growing up, and maybe I just didn't understand, just how much of an activist and a leader he was, with his very calm and very stern demeanor, and what it represented. And Ed Sullivan was quite a turning point in Black entertainment, in the entertainment world generally. But he made a contribution that you brought out in the documentary that isn't just about entertainment. It was a turning point in history. Can you share more about that with our listeners?
Well, yeah. So, you know, we're talking about 1947. Think about this, right? In 1947, there were no Black people on TV. And Ed Sullivan, he didn't have a prejudiced bone in his body. His first few shows had what was Bojangles? Bill Robinson and Ella Fitzgerald on them, right? Against the will of the sponsors and the broadcasters and the whole shot. I mean, he was the person that humanized Black people for the rest of the world, because prior to that, you know, everything related to Black was yes sir boss, or they were maids or butlers. But he brought people on that had stature, that were clean cut, that looked good, that spoke, you know, in a in the correct or the King's English vernacular, and use the, you know, the colloquialism. They were just great people that were kind and smart. And that gave a lot of the people in the South and a lot of the people all over the United States a different understanding of who Black people really were. Because prior to that, we were savages, we were beasts, right? And he humanized us. So he was an activist, but it was a quiet activism that needed to happen during this time in order for the tide to change. So your father and so Martin Luther King and all of those other people that were doing the job on the other side had support, right? Because without that support, the civil rights movement, it would have been a lot harder to get to push that agenda forward.
Carrie, I would imagine that for Ed Sullivan, telling our story in that subtle way, introducing us through black and white television. That's hard to imagine right now with colored HD TVs that are three-dimensional in many ways. Just this little boob tube with these two antennas hanging off of the side. And suddenly in a Southern living room and many Northern living rooms, Ed Sullivan, very stern, would come up and say, my very special guest today is Frankie Lyman. And here comes this young African-American male where many white kids would listen to maybe Frankie Lyman or to other artists on the radio. They're sitting there listening to him and didn't realize for the first time that he was actually a person of color, a black man.
Absolutely.
More of that I think is coming forward because Carrie, I think we're living in the kinds of times now where the subtlety of delivering our messages, the nuances of our messages are going to matter going forward. Your thoughts, Carrie?
Yeah, I definitely think the nuances of our messages matter. I think that it's important for people like me to do what I do to actually bring out what the real history was, as opposed to the history that was, given by the people who make the gold, the golden rule. Right. And so I think it's important for people like me to do what I do to bring out that history. And I think it's important for people like you to make sure that that history, the things that we bring out, are broadcast to the public. And I think it's important for the public to understand that they need to tell those stories to their children so their children understand what our history was, because I believe that we are losing our history, especially in the light of this new administration and the way that they are, trying to, in my opinion, rewrite history, right? And so it's important for all of the parents out there and all of the people out there that actually see this documentary to say, wait a minute, there was a struggle for us to get on TV. The concept was to keep TV white. That was the whole concept. And had it not been for Ed Sullivan, it could have still been white. It could have, there would have been no Dick Clark. There would have been no Soul Train, right? So to that end, each nuance is very important because it is something that builds upon the next thing, right? Like, without Ed Sullivan and Berry Gordy, it would have been a problem. It would have been a problem for people to see Diana Ross and the Jackson 5 and Gladys Knight and all of these people, right?
Carrie, let me ask you this question. If you've said that there's been a surge of interests in your work as a result of that, and I gather you're very discriminating when it comes to determining the angles, the artists, the approach that you want to use to tell that historical narrative. Can you share with us your personal processes for determining stories that you believe need to be told that remain hidden?
Yeah, it's very simple. I do things with passion and purpose and pride. That's 3 P's. I do things from my perspective in the way that I think that they need to be told. For instance, when I was approached with the Ed Sullivan doc through Margot Special, who's Ed Sullivan's granddaughter, the conventional wisdom out there for how the Ed Sullivan doc should be told was, he's the guy that brought the Beatles to the United States. He brought Elvis to the United States. He introduced the Rolling Stones, right? And so that was just the thing was, yes, he had the #1 show for 20 years or whatever. That was the angle that you would expect for this documentary to come from. But my paradigm and my reality, along with Sasha Jenkins, who is an amazing director, Black cultural director, along with Margot's thought process after having a meeting with Ambassador Shabazz, basically came up with this concept that no, we aren't going to do it from the perspective that people expect it to be from. We're going to do it from the perspective that we know as a people. And the perspective that we know as a people is, and you're just a little younger than me, when I was a child, there was nowhere for me to go to see Black people on TV, Black performers, right? Or Black people in general. As I can remember, the first things, there were three Black people on TV when I was a child. One was Bill Cosby in I Spy, right? The other was Julia, who was Diane Carroll, right?
That was fantastic.
And the last, and Mark Copage, which was a kid that was my age, which was exciting to me, right? And then there was Greg Morris in Mission Impossible.
That's right. That's right.
That's all that I had to see. That's all that I had to see. And then you had Ed Sullivan putting on all of these Black performers, which, by the way, made it so that on Sunday nights, that's where we went to see who was going to be on the show that night. It was an event. It was a privilege to be able to see people that looked like us and to have dignity, and they were clean. They were clean. Jackie Wilson was clean, right? I mean, they looked good,
They certainly did. Let me just add this just before we come forward. In this moment, and I hadn't really reflected upon it since I saw the documentary that Carrie is responsible for, I think about Mahalia, I think about Harry Belafonte, I think about, if you reflect upon many of the celebrities that came to the March on Washington in 1963, they had already appeared one time, two times, or multiple times on the Ed Sullivan Show.
Yes.
These artists who were introduced to the broader public market for the first time on Ed Sullivan were also being introduced to us visually on television as well, but they also brought a consciousness. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Our very special guest is Carrie Gordy. More when we come forward.
The biggest names, the best conversations. You're riding with Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Tammy Eswick with BIN News Now. We start with the government shutdown. Democrats and Republicans weren't able to reach a deal over the funding proposal. This could mean that government employees will be furloughed. We're talking about tens of thousands of workers. So here's the deal. Republicans want Democrats to open the government back up before striking the big deal. But Democrats say they want Medicaid cuts reversed, according to CNN. Let's hear from Senate Majority Leader John Thune, followed by Black House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, both via CNN.
The negotiation happens when the government's open.
Republicans are unserious at this point.
Well, it's official. Hurricane Imelda is here, and it may have claimed its first East Coast victim. A riptide pulled a man into the ocean in Florida. Meteorologists say the storm is not expected to make landfall in the U.S. Finally, prosecutors say they want Sean P. Diddy Combs to serve at least 11 years in prison. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Your unstoppable future begins here. Mount St. Mary's University LA has a 100-year track record of elevating lives and careers. 2 campuses, undergraduate and graduate degrees. Discover how unstoppable you can be at msmu.edu.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Hi, I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., inviting you to join me weekdays at 12 noon, right after Tavis Smiley, here on KBLA Talk 1580. As a law school graduate and a theologian with a firm grasp of our body politic given almost 2 decades in Congress, my show is the fresh new home of an authentic, uncompromised quest for transformation and salvation, both personal and collectively, as I vigorously interrogate the theological and symbolic meanings embedded in our society. I promise to leverage my knowledge of history, theology, and both international and domestic issues to imagine an inclusive vision for the future, which I hope will inspire all of us to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as a given, not just an aspiration. So join me weekdays at 12 noon, right after Tavis Smiley, for 2 hours of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Open enrollment is your opportunity to choose a plan that connects you to Providence's comprehensive healthcare network. Choose a plan that includes Providence and gain access to a dedicated team of highly trained primary care physicians and specialists. From nationally recognized doctors and hospitals, Providence ensures quality care is always within reach. When you choose Providence, you choose after-hours care through our nurse advice line, urgent care, or virtual express care. You choose 24/7 access through the Providence mobile app to message providers, request prescription refills, schedule appointments, check lab results, and more. This open enrollment, prioritize your well-being with the peace of mind that comes from choosing a provider that values excellence and compassionate care. Don't just choose a plan. Choose a plan dedicated to health equity and community engagement. Choose a plan that believes health is a human right. Choose a plan that delivers exceptional care and cares about your community. Choose a plan that offers Providence. Visit chooseprovidence.org to learn more.
Stop settling for weak sound. It's time to level up your game and bring the boom. Hit the town with the ultra-durable LG X Boom portable speaker and enjoy vibrant sound wherever you go. Elevate your listening experience to new heights because, let's be real, your music deserves it. The future of sound is now with LG X Boom. And for a limited time, save 25% at LG.com with code FALL25. Bring the boom. X Boom.
Do you have $10,000 or more in credit card debt? Are you barely getting by making minimum payments? With credit card debt reaching all-time highs, National Debt Relief is letting everyone know about great debt relief options now available to help people with overwhelming credit card debt. These options may reduce a large portion of your credit card debt. Get a free debt relief consultation when you call 800-259-9922. 800-259-9922. That's 800-259-9922.
Hey, KBLA 1580 delegation, your health matters to us. We know that information is power, especially when it comes to prevention and treatment. That's why we're proud to introduce the brand new KBLA Health and Wellness Hub. This online space is built just for you, connecting our community to trusted health resources, culturally relevant care, and even access to diverse clinical trials and emerging therapies. Whether you're looking for information on common conditions, mental health support, or just want to stay on top of your wellness journey, we got you. And the best part, it's all on our website at KBLA1580.com. Accessible, empowering, community focused. So just go to KBLA1580.com and click on the Health and Wellness Hub icon, because knowledge is power and your health is everything. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Our very special guest in this hour is none other than Kerry Gordy, affectionately known as KG, born in Detroit in the engine room of American music as the son of Motown's founder Berry Gordy, but his career stands on its own, spanning artist management, production, and media ventures that reach beyond the Motown imprint. And in this moment, Kerry Gordy is also a historian. He's a historian of our culture. He's a historian of our integrity and some of the mountains from some of the valleys that we've had to climb as African-American entertainers. It matters then, it matters now. Kerry, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Glad to be here.
I'm so glad you're back. Kerry, let me talk about those artists who always felt some type of way about their social context, the way in which they were living, having to go in the back doors, earning their respect, having had their music duplicated, stolen, their rhythm, their beat, their swag. Segregation itself was obviously a barrier to their exposure. And then here comes along Ed Sullivan, exposing the American people. I'm just going to cut to the chase, and Kerry, don't you say it, white folks, to Black life and Black entertainment in a most dignified way that changes a generation of young Americans who had never been exposed to us at our finest and highest level. And just before we came forward, I shared with you that many of these entertainers would go on exercising their First Amendment rights publicly for the first time. They would show up at these rallies and marches with Martin Luther King Jr., having first been exposed to the world the only way that television would allow them to be exposed, through Ed Sullivan, but they had a consciousness that mattered to our people. It seems to me, and I hasten not to bring you into the political conversation, but it seems to me that we're living in a kind of context right now where it's almost reflective of what many of those brothers and sisters had to go through who moved forward in spite of it all with that kind of dignity.
Yeah, I mean, if you're speaking of today as opposed to back then, we've made a tremendous amount of progress because of, your father, Martin Luther King, Ed Sullivan, Berry Gordy, Al Bell, and the people who actually push the message out. We've made a tremendous. So it's not as bad now as it was then because we've made so much progress. But what happens is that as the new administration is doing what they're doing, it's starting to go backwards. And what we don't want to do is we don't want it to go backwards, right? I mean, the people died to get these voting rights. People died to be able to eat any place they wanted. You speak of these people that were literally on Ed Sullivan and then literally at the marches. This is kind of a juxtaposition. They have kind of two heads there, right?
Definitely two consciousness.
Two consciousness. And the issue is that, remember, these people were big stars. And for instance, give you an example. Sammy Davis Jr. had a theater in Reno at Harrah's Hotel, right? That was called the Sammy Davis Jr. Theater, that he couldn't even enter the front door of his own theater. He had to go through the back. Okay. Until Frank Sinatra came and said, you know what? We are supporting Sammy, right? And and if he can't come in the front door, then we aren't going to perform either, right? So it took people that had that level of understanding and to help push that agenda. So that's the agenda that Ed Sullivan helped push. And like I said, there were all of these other little factions, such as, Frank Sinatra coming from that perspective, or the lyrics in the songs that were telling about the injustices of our people, right? So it is really funny. I got off on a tangent. I forgot the initial question you even asked.
I think that's the point. The point is they lived in these two consciousnesses, if you will.
Yes.
That is the reality of what it meant to be Black, to experience segregation, to experience a social order that did everything within its can to either limit its expression, limit its existence, while at the same time they're celebrated as the firsts in their community in the history of African Americans to have exposure beyond the reality of segregation. Ultimately, with Dr. King's leadership and the leadership of many others, those walls come tumbling down, and they make way for that entire a new generation of people who didn't have to struggle like that.
But check this out. They had to do that with dignity, being spat upon, being shot at, being beat up, right? And they had to keep a level of demeanor that was still positive, because had they taken the other route, which is what a normal person would do, because everybody is not, turn the other cheek, right?
Yeah.
That would have killed the movement, because then they would have been looked at as violent people. When Nat King Cole, got beat up by the white mob, and they had these guns and they were going to kill him, he didn't come off angry, like an angry Black man. He came off like an intelligent person that understood that these were just schmucks, right? It wasn't everybody. It was this section of people don't understand who we are, right? But if he had come off negatively and, kill Whitey kind of vibe, then that could have derailed the whole process. Absolutely. And it happened to everybody. The Temptations got shot at. It happened to everybody. So,
one of the things, as we prepare to come forward, I just want to opine on this point, because Terry Gordy, as a historian, forces me to think, is this. I heard a speech yesterday. I refused to mention the name of the individual who delivered it, but he talked about people being too close to each other and somehow saliva or spit is hitting them in the face. If we're paying very, very close attention, many of the things that happened to us in the 60s, in the 50s, in the 40s, where we maintained our own dignity at every step along the process, This guy uses what happened to us to say it's happening to them, and it's not true. They're painting themselves with the moral authority of our movement from the 40s, the 50s, and the 60s, as if, for example, white minority rights need their own leader. And so they use the terminology of our movement, of our civil rights. They even now have their own martyr assassinated for the cause of white minority rights. And he's flipped the script. And there's no foundation for the flipping of that script because it is not real. But listening to Kerry Gordy has shared with me, I've learned today, and I'm clearer today than I was yesterday on just how much they're flipping the script of our existence and turning it into their moral authority for their reality. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. You're on KBLA Talk 1580. My very good friend, Kerry Gordy, is our very special guest, and I look forward to having him back in just a moment.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm still going for it, even with higher stroke risk from atrial fibrillation, an irregular heartbeat not caused by a heart valve problem. Over a 3-year study, Eliquis apixaban tablets reduced stroke risk better than warfarin, and over 97% of Eliquis patients did not experience a stroke. A first stroke occurred in 2.9% of warfarin patients versus 2.3% of Eliquis patients.
Don't stop prescription Eliquis without asking your doctor. Stroke risk may increase. Eliquis can cause serious and potentially fatal bleeding. Don't take if you have an artificial heart valve, abnormal bleeding, or antiphospholipid syndrome. While taking, you may bruise more easily or bleed longer. A spinal injection increases blood clot risk, which may cause paralysis. Get medical help right away for unexpected bleeding or bruising, or back pain, tingling, numbness, muscle weakness, or incontinence. Aspirin products, NSAIDs, SSRIs, SNRIs, and blood thinners increase bleeding risk. Tell your doctor about planned medical or dental procedures. Learn more at Eliquis.com or call 1-855-ELIQUIS.
Hear that? That's the sound of your life. Perfectly imperfect. Beating in rhythm to the world you've created. But every time you drive after drinking, music gets drowned out. Your life sounds pretty great. Don't let a buzz ruin it. Buzz driving is drunk driving. Don't drive buzzed. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Imagine a Los Angeles where everyone can thrive, where communities have access to the resources they need to succeed. That's the vision of Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. They're dedicated to improving life in LA County by providing educational support, employment assistance, and spaces for community engagement. By 2050, they want LA to be the best place to connect, create, learn, live, and play. They're working toward an education system that's well-resourced and culturally responsive, becoming a hub for artists and innovators, and making sure everyone has access to healthy food, quality healthcare, and safe housing. It's about building a future where we all have the chance to succeed. We invite you to learn more about their mission and get involved with Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Is your loved one at the hospital or in a nursing home? Have they developed bed sores, fallen, or worse? These are things your family members should be protected from. Bed sores, falls, and dehydration are almost always the result of negligent care. If this has happened to your loved one, call Zoran at Basic Law Group at 800-215-1234 or visit basiclawgroup.com. The consultation is free, and if they don't win, you don't pay. That's 800-215-1234.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Our very special guest On the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show in this hour is Carrie Gordy on Sunday Best and how Ed Sullivan opened doors for Black America. Carrie has received a number of astounding commendations for this extraordinary work, including, but not limited to, additional opportunities to do additional documentaries for which he is obviously saying no. He is very selective, and rightfully so, to maintain the quality of his work. Carrie, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
It's good to be here.
Carrie, let me ask you a question. You recently received an award from Congress.
Yeah, actually, I received several. I received one from Maxine Waters, which was exciting to me. One from Adam Schiff, right?
Oh, wow.
which is great. Got something from Karen Bass, who's the mayor of
Los
LA.
Angeles, a wonderful mayor.
And it's really funny, but it's really interesting. It wasn't necessarily for the Sunday Best documentary, even though that actually brought my my contributions to life. It was for my body of work because, you know, I am the Robin Hood of the music side of the entertainment business, and I terminate contracts for people who assign their rights over early in their careers before they had the leverage to make the best deals for themselves. But it was really funny because I got a call, a text from Paul, Nancy Pelosi's husband. And she said to me, and he said to me, "We just watched your documentary, and it is amazing, right?"
How's he doing, by the way?
You know what? He's doing great. He's doing great. Which I was happy to see. Yes. And so anyway, it goes, and I've gotten quite a few more, but my point is that right now it's interesting for my body of work, you know, running Prince's company and managing Rick James and running the urban division for Warner Brothers and so forth at Motown and the whole shot. It's this one thing that I did that has this cultural significance that is actually bringing all of that back into, into view. So I am so excited because this was something that I did with passion and purpose. And I wasn't doing it for money. I was doing it because it needed to be done and it needed to be said. And people needed to know what Ed Sullivan stood for. And that's why when I reached out to the NAACP, they welcomed me with open arms. The Urban League welcomed me with open arms. The AAFCA with open arms. It's been a great, and of course you and your group of people. It's been an incredible ride for this last 3 or 4 months, which was a 3-year journey to get to this last 3 or 4 months.
I just want to say before I ask Carrie a couple of final questions, that remind everyone that Paul Pelosi was the victim of political violence. And to hear that he is recovering and doing well and able to sit back and enjoy some of the body of work that is represented by Carrie Gordy, we are certainly grateful to him and grateful to his family and praying for him that he continues his recovery. Please.
Let me tell you how good he's doing. Okay. I was at a birthday celebration with for my father, and I had the opportunity to dance with he and Nancy Pelosi together. So we were literally dancing on the dance floor, having a great time together. So he's doing well.
Oh, that's fantastic. And so our prayers are still extended to him and to all victims of political violence. We need to stop that. We need to get a hold of ourselves and limit our behavior to civil discourse. That's on behalf of me, but I believe it's also on behalf of KBLA Talk 1580. Carrie, let me ask you a couple more questions.
Sure.
So as we move down this road of defining our culture, we are up against a tremendous movement in the United States to rewrite our story. And you're like a salmon swimming upstream saying, hey, there's some hidden stories over here that also matter to the American narrative. What's it like in this environment to be swimming upstream, not with the wind at your back, but really a headwind, when you're fighting to tell a story that is very important and critical for an understanding of what we became as Americans?
Well, listen, it's really interesting. No matter what you do, it's always hard. So yeah, it becomes a little harder when you're fighting something that is so big and so massive. But the fact of the matter is that somebody has to do it if it wants to get done. And so, yeah, I'm swimming upstream, but as I'm swimming upstream, I'm getting more soldiers behind me to push it, to push our agenda forward. Because here's the thing: for every me, there's somebody else that thinks like me, right? As you do, and as you push forward and you gather more people and you gather that whole consciousness, then you build your, it's almost like a viral. It's almost like putting something out and it going viral. If people really gravitate to it, it becomes something that is important. So yes, it's a little harder, but everything is hard. I've never had anything in my life that was just easy or that went the way that you expected it to go. There's always, yes, you're proactive in the beginning, but you have to become reactive once things start to happen, right? So yeah, it's a little tough, but it's definitely doable. It's definitely doable.
Yeah, I hear you. I think about the First Amendment in this hour. On the cover today, for example, of the October edition of The Atlantic, Jill Lepore calls for the amending of the First Amendment. And I've shared on this show in the past, Carrie, that when we arrived on these shores in 1619, there was no Constitution. That didn't happen until September 17th, 1787. And there was no Bill of Rights until 1791, and the Bill of Rights did not apply to us. And the way in which the First Amendment began to apply to us, I believe, was first and foremost through our ministers and our ministry in the early Black church, through the slave period in the nation's history. But then it began to emerge in song. It began to emerge in our creative expression that was First Amendment activity, but it wasn't fought in a way that when we speak up, we get slashed for speaking up or hung for speaking up or told speak when spoken to. And so when I hear your articulation of these issues, I can't help but frame it in this particular historical context, because when I see reporters being fired from Jimmy Kimmel, and I think about Don Lemon, and I think about Joanne Reed, and I think about these people who have whose DNA has become a part of the United States, and they do what they do so well. And I think about our expression through our entertainers and how it has become limited in this environment. Yeah, I think we're going far backwards. I think we're going and sliding away very quickly. I think that the values that we thought we had in 1 year have almost been decimated. But then I see your courage swimming upstream. We have a little less than a minute. Can you offer us a word of hope, Carrie?
Yeah. Well, we have to telling the story through song and movies is not as it doesn't what is it? It doesn't make people as uncomfortable as militant activism, right? So we can get away with telling the story through songs songs and movies. So it's very important for people to go check out Sunday Best on Netflix so that they can understand what we had to go through in order to get these Black people on TV and in order for Black people to be humanized in a way that was reasonable as opposed to us being savages.
Carrie?
That's it.
I'm particularly grateful for your word of hope. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You've been listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Our very special guest has been Kerry Gordy. He's one of the best and brightest we've ever produced. Congratulations, Kerry, on your accomplishment.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Bye-bye.
Bye.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Tammy Eswick with BIN News Now. We start with the government shutdown. Democrats and Republicans weren't able to reach a deal over the funding proposal. This could mean that government employees will be furloughed. We're talking about tens of thousands of workers. So here's the deal. Republicans want Democrats to open the government back up before striking the big deal. But Democrats say they want Medicaid cuts reversed, according to CNN. Let's hear from Senate Majority Leader John Thune, followed by Black House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, both via CNN.
The negotiation happens when the government's open.
Republicans are unserious at this point.
Well, it's official. Hurricane Imelda is here, and it may have claimed its first East Coast victim. A riptide pulled a man into the ocean in Florida. Meteorologists say the storm is not expected to make landfall in the U.S. Finally, prosecutors say they want Sean P. Diddy Combs to serve at least 11 years in prison. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Your unstoppable future begins here. Mount St. Mary's University LA has a 100-year track record of elevating lives and careers. 2 campuses, undergraduate and graduate degrees. Discover how unstoppable you can be at msmu.edu.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
LeBron did not practice Tuesday in the Lakers' first full day of workouts and training camp, and he's not expected to be on the court for practice today. LeBron is dealing with nerve irritation in his glutes, the main muscles in the rear end. The Lakers were planning to limit LeBron's activity anyway in training camp and the preseason. LeBron, who turns 41 in December, is coming off a sprained knee from the playoffs and a foot injury. It's unlikely LeBron will play in any of the Lakers' 6 preseason games. The first game is Friday against Phoenix in Palm Springs. Lakers coach J.J. Redick said the plan is to have LeBron ready for the regular season opener October 21st against Golden State. LeBron is entering his NBA record 23rd season. The previous record for NBA longevity was 22 years by Hall of Fame guard Vince Carter. Carter retired in 2020 after playing for 8 teams. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey, I am D.L. Hughley, host of the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show, heard weekdays from 2 to 4 exclusively on KBLA Talk 1580. I promise to make you think a little, but laugh a whole lot more. So tune in to the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show, 2 to 4, only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580 in this Wealthy Wednesday, second hour. Our regular contributor, Dr. S. Todd Yeary, is with us. Dr. Yeary has 1 foot in the pulpit and 1 foot in the church. He's the principal of the Yeary Firm, a Maryland-based litigation government relations firm, and also serves as senior pastor of the Douglas Memorial Community Church of Baltimore and affiliates. Dr. Yeary is also the former chief executive of the Rainbow Push Coalition, the international human rights organization founded by my father, the Reverend Jesse Jackson. Dr. Yeary, I had a wonderful time seeing you in Washington this past week at the CBC.
I missed the boat, though. I missed the boat. That's
It didn't go far. We got right off there in Maryland, where Frederick Douglass and everybody else got off, and ended up right in Baltimore County. Todd, let me ask you a question. First, let me, on that note, in our first segment, get your assessment of the mood and what you experienced at the Congressional Black Caucus. And let me see if I can juxtapose that against the mood that I felt as well while there. Reverend Yuri.
So the mood that I picked up on was one that was very focused and thoughtful, but also, I think, very clear on the seriousness of this moment. And so out of that, in a number of the conversations, particularly from or at the prayer breakfast Saturday morning, was a sense of reassurance that this is a moment, but we are not alone in it. It's often what you speak of about the finger of God in the Constitution. Well, the hand of God is with the people of God in the midst of this consequential moment. And so we have to be diligent and persistent and resilient, because it's going to be a difficult road ahead. But if we are serious and focused and undeterred, in the end, everything, as we say in the church, is going to be all right.
Interestingly enough, Dr. Yuri, yesterday on our program with Dr. Barbara Arnwine from the Transformative Justice Coalition, she echoed something that I'm not sure I echoed on a program with her previously, but she confirmed in her own way something I have echoed on this program a number of times, that the attack and assault on the Voting Rights Act of 1965, she picked up on the idea that members have come to accept that without a serious pushback and a fight to save the Voting Rights Act of 1965, that we could lose as many as 23 members. I argued yesterday that I thought that was a conservative number. I thought we could lose as many as half, 30 African Americans in the Congress, if these states are forced during the midterms to reevaluate their state plans by eliminating race as a consideration in the drawing of congressional districts, and hence forcing many states in the union to redraw their plans. Dr. Yuri, did you sense the somber mood that even though we have 60 Blacks in Congress, there could be fewer of us going forward?
I wouldn't necessarily say it was somber. I think it's serious, right? This is not our imagination. And because the Supreme Court has tinkered a bit with how circuit courts of appeals decisions affect the rest of the nation, I think there was an awareness that we have to be more comprehensive in our analysis, in our strategy development, in our coordination, and in our tactical deployment. This period of just kind of at times slapshot response, because we would think and hope that the existing law would give us the protections that we need, is no longer sufficient. And so it is really, I think, a serious conversation beyond the conference meetings and the other discussions, that in what we might call the back rooms, or the rooms where it happens, in the basements of churches where the movement was often discussed and planned, that there has to be literally a state by state strategy, because even if Section 2 were not changed, if the states continue to play the games that they have, particularly the southern states, then we could still have a serious problem on our hands, regardless of what happens with the remainder of the Voting Rights Act.
I think that's right, because at least from my perspective, the gutted Civil Rights Department within the Justice Department leaves no federal support and no federal enforcement. And as you correctly observe, it turns the debate over to the states. And in that context, the Democrats are vying for more Democratic seats. The Republicans are vying for more Republican seats. We've been there before. We were there in first Reconstruction when the federal law was removed from the states, and Tilden, Hayes, and Compromise called them troops, called them federal law. They withdrew it. The night riders, the terrorists, began showing up, scaring us away from the polls, threatening our right to vote, making us count jelly beans in a jar, and marbles, and how many grains of sand can you put in a cup. before you can vote. It seems to me that we're looking again at new forms, which Barbara Arnwine is super sensitive to, new forms of voter denial and voter discrimination that could undermine our participation in the midterms. And that's not something that comes after the decennial census in 2030. It could come as quickly as the midterms, where Donald Trump is putting a lot of pressure on these legislatures. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Todd Eury is our very special guest. Todd, your initial thoughts? We got just a couple of more seconds.
We got a lot of work to do, and we have to pay attention to all of these connecting dots that we're watching in real time, because these things are not disconnected. They are actually overlapping and interrelated. We've got work to do.
Dr. Eury, when we come forward, I'd like to hear your thoughts on the government shutdown, Democrats standing up, and what it ultimately means. Tens of thousands of people who could be laid off. Donald Trump has suggested that there are some things that he can do during a government shutdown that could ultimately accomplish what he'd been trying to do in the first place. And that is include fire numbers, tens of thousands of federal workers, leaving the federal government without the resources or the time that it needs to repair the damage that he's done moving forward. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Listen to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. This is Wealthy Wednesdays with Dr. Todd Eury on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, KBLA Talk 1580.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hello, KBLA delegation. Tavis Smiley here. On Saturday, October 25th, LA Trade Tech becomes the epicenter of ideas that matter. The Left Coast Forum is bringing together voices that challenge, inspire, and illuminate, with keynote presentations from people like noted economist Richard Wolff, the man who breaks down capitalism in ways that make sense to working folk like you and me, and Dr. Cornel West will be there, the brilliant philosopher and activist who never stops fighting for justice and speaking truth to power and to the powerless, for that matter. So this isn't just another conference. This is where ideas get tested, where the conversations that shape our future begin. Multiple plenary sessions, dynamic speakers, real talk about the issues that impact our communities, and then some good food and a live band. Saturday, October 25th, LA Trade Tech, Left Coast Forum. The event is free and open to the public, but you must register at our KBLA1580.com website, where you can also peep the plenary topics. The future belongs to those who show up and engage. So don't just think about change, be part of the conversation that creates it. The Left Coast Forum is brought to you by the LA Progressive, the Empowerment Congress, Community Coalition, Partnership for Growth LA, Southwest Voter Registration Education Project, LA Care Health Plan, United Teachers Los Angeles, Black Progressive Action Coalition, St. John's Community Health, the National Lawyers Guild, the Weingart Foundation, and more. Space is limited, so if I were you, I'd register right now at KBLA1580.com. Your voice matters, your presence matters. We'll see you there.
Agnes was in deep trouble with the IRS.
I owed the IRS a lot of money. I did not know what I was going to do. I was scared.
Agnes caught a break and found out about Optima Tax Relief.
But when I called Optima Tax, they guaranteed me that they were going to help me out the best that they can. And they did.
Optima stopped the IRS.
No more telephone calls, no more letters. Optima Tax took care of everything. I can finally sleep at night. I was stress-free.
Agnes was finally free from her IRS nightmare.
It was like a burden was lifted off of me, and it was a great feeling.
Are you in deep trouble with the IRS? You might want to listen to Agnes.
I would refer Optima Tax Relief to anyone because they got me debt-free from owing the IRS any more money.
Call Optima right now for your free consultation. Call 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077.
Optima Tax Relief.
Testimonial from an actual client. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Our guest in this hour is Reverend Dr. Todd Eury. Reverend Dr. Todd Eury is the principal of the Eury firm. Dr. Eury's social justice work includes having served on the national board of the National Action Network, From 2015 to 2021, past political chair for the Maryland State Conference of the NAACP and co-founding principal of Community Churches for Community Development, Inc. Dr. Yuri, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Always good to hang out with you. Things get serious every time I come up here on Wednesday. I'm trying to figure out what's going on.
Not more serious than the last time you were on our program when you called and said the judge won't let me out of court. I said, I hope they haven't bound him and gagged him. Anyway, Dr. Yuri, let me pick up on where we left off. There have been other government shutdowns in the past. The nation has weathered the storm of government shutdowns. This shutdown seems a little bit different. The President of the United States, in previous shutdowns, and even the Congress in previous shutdowns, could balk at the idea of calls from their constituents. This shutdown, at least from my perspective, appears to be unlike any other. Dr. Yuri, help us with some of the challenges that this president, empowered by the Supreme Court with the unique powers, could drag this on and on and on until he gets his way.
Yeah, I think the question that I often wrestle with is, where does a shutdown fit within the overall implementation of basically the real world reality of a Project 2025? And here's what I mean. So the government shuts down at midnight, the evening of the same day that the president as commander-in-chief meets with the command staff of the military at Quantico. And in that conversation that he has, albeit a bit scattered, not that we would expect much else, there are a couple of things that I think he said that ought to put us all on notice. One was changing the warrior ethos, setting it up for some general officers, senior enlisted to be excluded on the basis of skin conditions. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. You can't wear certain hair types if you're a woman. And so it is actually kind of setting a tone to have some officers and senior enlisteds being displaced. While at the same time, there was something that was really, really interesting. And that because he says the oath that members of the military take to protect the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. He then mentioned that he has the authority to use the regular military for domestic purposes. And that with the disturbances that they're seeing, he used Portland as an example, that using the military to go in and quell those kinds of disturbances would be a form of combat training, if you will. Now, what that says to me is that this president is orchestrating a set of circumstances to create an outcome, a situation where he can get as close to invoking the Insurrection Act or some other form of martial law that allows him to then make certain decrees without checks and balances. And as you mentioned, the Supreme Court has said he basically has unfettered immunity for official acts while president. And so this shutdown then becomes a question of, if the government professionals, the folks who work day to day, who know how the government works, are removed from their positions to create a different kind of pressure on what our expectations are. Is this part of the overall ploy and plan to destabilize the government to such a degree that there would be no checks and no balances if he were to decide that he would not leave office after 2028? That's what I think all of this noise is about, to kind of test where the pushback is coming from. And so he's setting off fire alarms and has all of these fire drills going simultaneously to see where might the resistance come from.
So you just scared the hell out of me. I've been trying for the last day or so since I watched that awful speech that first Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of so-called war, and all of the bravado and nonsense that he acted through for about an hour, some kind of king of one-liners. I saw him constantly looking up at something. It had to be some kind of teleprompter because no one comes up with that many one-liners without, having prepared them for his moment in the sun, to only be followed by the scatterbrained approach of the President of the United States. And I'm saying to myself in real time that part of the release of nuclear weapons requires a consent between these two guys. That the president has a code, that the Secretary of Defense has a code, and that others have codes, that the process of even providing codes to different members of the cabinet is supposed to be a thoughtful process where some of these members can push back on the president and his ideas. What I saw yesterday in that outrageous performance in Quantico was a Secretary of Defense who is incapable of offering a pushback to the idea of military use in civilian capacities in major cities, or even if in fact the President of the United States made the judgment that the national security of the United States was at stake and decided to authorize the use of a nuclear weapon. I did not see any checks and balances to that process. And I'm going to be very honest with you, it just scared the devil out of me. Am I wrong, Reverend Urey?
No. Listen, the head of the department that oversees all of the military, which now includes the Space Force, right? We have another branch. You've got the commanders and the leaders of those military branches sitting in front of the most unqualified secretary to hold that office, probably in the nation's history. Now, he spent a little bit of time in the military. I think he achieved the rank of major. But when you're talking to folks who have literally had to make the kinds of decisions about sending young men, young women into harm's way to advance a national strategy, I think they're all probably saying, to quote Robin in the old Batman series, "Holy cow, Batman." Because what they recognize is there is no filter, and that the Supreme Court has not pushed back on the president's removal of any officer that should be protected under the law from the arbitrary dismissals that this president is advancing. Lisa Cook is the one that's still ongoing. That because there is no pushback coming from this court, and I think this court is wrestling with, if there were to be pushback from the court, how would they enforce it? They have no resources to be able to say, other than there's buy-in because it is tied to the Constitution. You've got the right president who has no respect for anything or anybody, basically being given the keys, not just to the car, but the key to the cars in the garage, the tanks, the missiles, the codes. And he can put whatever other or whomever the other unqualified persons would be who would not resist him. All you got to do is look at who he's got sitting in government right now, the heads of the several departments.
Todd, this is what I wrote this morning. White supremacy is so deep that the devastating arsenals of the Cold War are used primarily against proxies and people of color who fight using horses and camels with American and Russian weapons. We have nuclear weapons, battleships, submarines, drones, tanks, Humvees, the fastest and most lethal air force on Earth, unlimited battlefields, cannons, a space force, the best trained forces on Earth, the best technology, tens of trillions of dollars during the Cold War, and now we fight pirates on speedboats and makeshift but deadly dangerous militias with this enormous power. We have special forces, intelligence, covert operations all over Earth, and whether we agree with it or not, that's why there are rules of war that include proportionality. We are using our weapons on everyone except Russians. Trump and Hegseth talk to everyone except Russians. America negotiates trade and economic deals, Trump's tariffs, with poor countries essentially at gunpoint. Yesterday, the Secretary of so-called War talked about removing everyone from the Pentagon, from the military, who has a conscience He talked about an unprecedented lethality not against Russians, not against Europeans, but everyone else on planet Earth who stands in the way of American economic interests. That includes the expansion of the American empire for critical minerals that are underneath the feet of the world poor. Reverend Erie, am I wrong?
You're not wrong. And the American agenda is the agenda that they have set, not necessarily the agenda that has been developed and negotiated, right? And so whatever he wakes up and decides that he wants to do is the agenda for the day, and everybody else has to fall in line. And therefore, it is such an erratic kind of engagement that you never know what response is going to be the right response, because something may change 2 minutes from now. But I think what has to be our focus is to reinforce the discipline in the systems that are designed to work according to certain principles and standards. This president is vaporizing political norms, changing the rules as he goes along, because somebody told him that basically once you get to be president of the United States, the next promotion for you is to be God himself. And so it is really that kind of divine right attitude where you have the seraphim of his cabinet running around like little angelic surrogates trying to do his bidding, imposing the rest of that will on us. And this is, even as we talk about what it was with Hitler, we have to remember Hitler was not a project. Hitler was a student of the American standard of Plessy v. Ferguson, separate but equal, looking at all of those dynamics. That's where you ended up with South African apartheid modeling itself after what had happened here. I think this is an escalation and an elevation of kind of the old tools of the old guard America, and it is coming back with no costume, no mask, no hood. It's coming back with a flag on the lapel, and the military in the streets.
It is what it is, and it is very difficult to accept at this hour. Reverend Erie, we have about 4 minutes before we come forward. I'd like to pivot to a brief conversation I had with the newly elected president of the Southern Christian Leadership. And I pulled him aside on Congresswoman Sewell's boat ride. And after having met him, I shared with him that, I'm wondering what changes African-American organizations are going through in light of what we're confronting. I know that one of Dr. King's last insights was the need to establish a Southern Christian Leadership Conference. I shared with him, have you given any thought to a Northern Christian Leadership Conference and an Eastern Christian Leadership Conference and a Western Christian Leadership Conference and the idea of a national Christian Leadership Conference, all modeled after the idea that Dr. King set out when he recognized this evangelical problem in the Deep South and in our churches and in their Christology, particularly evangelical white racism, wrapped in a kind of Christian ethos and ethics that includes guns and all of the conservative stuff that we're seeing. And he said, they're looking at it, they're thinking about it. I'm wondering in your thinking, we have 2 minutes, and of course we can talk about it when we come forward. Are any of our organizations giving a reflection to the idea that they have to be national in scope? Yes, I get the ground up stuff, but what we're confronting state by state, as you correctly acknowledge, it seems to me that we have to adjust to the times, and we just can't see ourselves in our old regional capacities. Dr. Erie?
Yeah, I think we've gotten trapped in this either or dichotomy, right? It's a both and strategy. You've got to have a national thread that ties all of the common interests together, but you have to have enough capability and precision in your understanding of what happens city by city, town by town, state by state, to be able to nuance the response on the ground so that it is impactful and effective. It is because we don't have these larger collaborative conversations, much like, let's go back, Gary, 1972, that because we don't have those kinds of discussions and organizational survival, and sometimes maybe leadership egos get in the way, that we miss the opportunity and we abandon the obligation to do what we need to do on behalf of the people.
Reverend Dr. Todd Yeary is what makes Wednesdays wealthy on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. The Politics of Our Faith with Reverend Dr. Todd Yeary. More with Dr. Yeary when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Tammy Eswick with BIN News Now. Traffic might get a little lighter as you head to work in the morning thanks to a government shutdown. Tens of thousands of non-essential government workers could be told to stay home, while Democrats and Republicans point fingers at one another. Here's House Speaker Mike Johnson.
As we speak here this morning, there are hundreds of thousands of federal workers who are getting their furlough notices.
This shutdown not only affects government workers, but also people who get payments from the federal government, like HUD landlords. Meanwhile, Black Mayor Eric Adams says crews are on the scene of a gas explosion in New York City. That gas explosion caused a partial collapse of a high-rise apartment building. So far, there's no reports of injuries. Finally, a Tina Turner statue just unveiled in Tennessee. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Your unstoppable future begins here. Mount St. Mary's University LA has a 100-year track record of elevating lives and careers. 2 campuses, undergraduate and graduate degrees. Discover how unstoppable you can be at msmu.edu.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
LeBron did not practice Tuesday in the Lakers' first full day of workouts and training camp, and he's not expected to be on the court for practice today. LeBron is dealing with nerve irritation in his glutes, the main muscles in the rear end. The Lakers were planning to limit LeBron's activity anyway in training camp and the preseason. LeBron, who turns 41 in December, is coming off a sprained knee from the playoffs and a foot injury. It's unlikely LeBron will play in any of the Lakers' 6 preseason games. The first game is Friday against Phoenix in Palm Springs. Lakers coach J.J. Redick said the plan is to have LeBron ready for the regular season opener October 21st against Golden State. LeBron is entering his NBA record 23rd season. The previous record for NBA longevity was 22 years by Hall of Fame guard Vince Carter. Carter retired in 2020 after playing for 8 teams. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio that's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
It's never too early to start talking about money in realistic ways with your kids. JP Morgan Chase navigates how to educate your kids now about creating long-lasting, healthy money habits. Whether your kids are in elementary school, high school, or college, now is a great time to start a conversation about ways to create healthy money habits as they grow, ultimately benefiting their financial future. Talking about money in a realistic way to support your kids' lifestyle and dreams, your first banking account geared towards high school or college. It's never too early. Explaining the basics, what you earn and what you spend, building financial confidence starts with getting organized. Learning and practicing vital money skills now will stay with them for life. Tools they will have to stay on top of their finances and achieve their goals. This segment is sponsored by JP Morgan Chase.
Stop settling for weak sound. It's time to level up your game and bring the boom. Hit the town with the ultra-durable LG X Boom portable speaker and enjoy vibrant sound wherever you go. Elevate your listening experience to new heights because, let's be real, your music deserves it. The future of sound is now with LG X Boom. And for a limited time, save 25% at LG.com with code FALL25. Bring the boom. X Boom.
Do you have $10,000 or more in credit card debt? Are you barely getting by making minimum payments? With credit card debt reaching all-time highs, National Debt Relief is letting everyone know about great debt relief options now available to help people with overwhelming credit card debt. These options may reduce a large portion of your credit card debt. Get a free debt relief consultation when you call 800-259-9922. 800-259-9922. That's 800-259-9922.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Jesse Jackson 1580. My very special guest is none other than Dr. S. Todd Yeary. Dr. Yeary is the principal of the Yeary Firm, a social justice action leader who has his tentacles in every single civil rights organization in the country. And the question I was asking him just before the break is whether or not our organizations themselves are rising to the occasion of political organizing. And Todd, I want to just add this to it before we go any further. I just get this up. My friend Tracy Waugh, she writes, the frozen water people have been in Bronzeville since this afternoon, and they raided a church shelter, a church-based shelter. The frozen water people. I had to think about it for a minute. She's talking about ICE. She coined it right here, everybody. The frozen water people. That's what she's calling them now, and I think that's really good, Tracy. Expect that to spread across the country. Whenever you see the frozen water people, let us know. I do have to say this, in 1984 and 88, when Jesse Jackson ran for president, he was the first African American to set up an organization in all 50 states. I encouraged him to do the same in 1992. By then, Dad was a little bit exhausted of the idea of running for president, did not run in 92, set up an organization, Rainbow Coalition. And the Rainbow Coalition over time became what the Rainbow Coalition is. When I think about the hundreds, maybe thousands of chapters of the NAACP, many of which are in a file cabinet in somebody's basement. Everybody's got a local NAACP leader. I get it. When I think about the conversation I had with the leadership of the Southern Christian leadership as they think through, what to do next, and I think about our organizations, it just seems to me that the organizational structures themselves, to your point before the break, are not rising to the occasion of restructuring themselves. Younger leadership, newer leadership, but trained leadership that understands the history, that understands the context, the John Lewis type leadership. Everyone tells me, and I hear people, we need younger faces and younger voices. If you don't know what you're talking about, you can keep your young faces. You have to have some knowledge of the history of the road less traveled by our people in this struggle, or you're just another face in Washington or in Springfield or Sacramento or Atlanta that just running your mouth without any context. That's why I love listening to Cornel West and listening to Tavis Smiley and listening to the historians, Aubrey Hendricks, Walter Fluker, Bob Franklin, Henry Louis Gates, listening to people who show us where God's hand has intervened in our history, Reverend Yeary, over time to give us a solid story and a solid narrative. Let me close on this. Johnny Mack talks about us being in time, but we're in time over time. That is, No Todd Yeary has ever existed in human history. No Todd Yeary will ever exist again beyond Todd Yeary. You are in time for what you have to do to fulfill your purpose. But you're in time over time, meaning all of our history, the sum of it is about Todd Yeary. It seems to me that in this time, we have to reflect an organization that can start thousands of chapters on college campuses, that can have the impact that, let's say, the Charlie Kirk reaction has created in terms of campus chapters. I don't see that happening, and I just don't see the network necessary to make that happen. We're in too many different denominations and congregations, and we're fractured. Dr. Yeary, work with me here.
Yeah, I think we've gotten the purpose confused with the distribution network that fulfills it. And so just thinking back to the modern civil rights movement, thinking back to how a moment in time created the spark that became what we were able to see in the 50s and 60s after the Montgomery bus boycott. There was no structure or organizational frame per se that was going to take lead on that. And so it was kind of driven by really the interest of young folk in that day. Let's remember, Dr. King was in his mid-20s. And so young leadership is not foreign to movements. What is foreign to movements is a lack of clarity about the mission. And if we don't have mission clarity, it doesn't matter who you put up there. Doesn't matter how bright they are. Doesn't matter how much they know history. If we're not clear on what we're doing and why we're doing it, then we're going to flounder. And I think there's enough frustration that has gone around that we've not really had the kinds of substantive conversations, and many of them have to be, yes, intergenerational conversations, because it's not enough for the Todd Yeary at this stage of his life to do what he does and not have a conversation so that whoever's going to follow maybe whatever path is or take up the work when night falls on my season of working, we've got to have those kinds of engaged conversations. We have to remember that a Jesse Lewis Jackson, who became Jesse Lewis Jackson Sr. after, a brother who I will not call out right now, became, Jesse Lewis Jackson Jr. because of his arrival, was in his 20s, right? The Operation Breadbasket assignment to him was as a young man. So we need young vigor, we need elder wisdom, we need mission clarity, and we need the whole community involved and engaged. And because I think we're missing that, because there's so many different things coming at us. We've got voting rights over here. We got economics over here. We've got them coming for our jobs over here. It's almost like we are shell shocked, and to rely upon my mentors out of the Black psychology movement, the Baba Naim Akbars and Wade Nobles of the world, Dr. Tawede Grills in California, where you are. Look, they are reminding us that if we don't get our souls calmed and still, so we can be clear on what this assignment is, we're going to always have a chaotic response. We can work through all of those other details, but part of it is let's be clear with some certainty. What is our objective, and why does this objective matter to us in this moment in time?
So I think in this moment in time, with our 2 minutes before we come forward, and of course, I know Dr. Yeary already knows that he's going to get a word of hope in the next segment. It seems to me, if I asked you the question, what is the mission in this moment of the NAACP, your answer would be?
Well, the mission of the NAACP is to advance civil rights and social justice. That's kind of the 30-second. How it gets implemented is, I think, the deeper discussion that we never really get to. If we talk about what's the mission of the Rainbow Push Coalition.
I was going to ask that next.
Right. Is the advancement of economic empowerment and political empowerment, recognizing that those two things are not interrelated, they're actually the same. And so if we don't...
What is the mission of the Urban League?
The mission of the Urban League, without being able to kind of look at their source, they all kind of orbit in, I think, a similar space. They operate with a different frame. And so the Urban League does more of kind of what we would consider a corporate structure and engagement. The NAACP more on the ground, local structure. You've got branches, and then you've got state, local chapters, state branches. You've got the national organization, and then you've got kind of the model of the Rainbow Push Coalition. We had kind of the regional subject matter focused deployment around certain topical areas that were important to the mission. So they operate different, but the thread that kind of pulled them through, the thread that made SNCC and SCLC and CORE be able to coexist in the same framework, is though they saw the problem differently, they were at least clear, I believe, on what the problem was.
I think I could ask the same question of the NAN, the National Council of Negro Women, and I'm not trying to jam you up. I'm just simply saying that Charlie Kirk's organization, with 18,000 new chapters and 35,000 interests in the last couple of weeks, has a single point. A single point. White minority rights.
It has a single point. What it doesn't have is a track record.
Yeah.
I heard a clip earlier that was fairly recent, that there was an announcement at a recent event that the largest gathering they had ever had for Turning Point USA was occurring on that day, and it was 5,800 people. There are Black churches who get more people on a Sunday morning. And so I think we have to be very, very careful that when we hear these numbers, that we don't ascribe necessarily meaning and impact. Certainly there's fervor. We cannot deny that. Certainly there is a zeal to get them engaged, but we got work to do.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. This is KBLA Talk 1580 more with Dr. Todd Uri when we come forward.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
September is World Alzheimer's Month, a time to shine a light on a public health crisis that hits Black families hardest. 1 in 5 Black adults ages 70 and older is living with Alzheimer's disease, or AD, and it's not a normal part of aging. Early signs like repeating questions, missed appointments, even trouble handling bills might seem small, but they matter. The good news? There are treatment options available that may slow AD when diagnosed early. Don't wait. Visit treatalsearly.com. That's treatalzearly.com to learn more. This message is brought to you by AZI.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-550-9651. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS. Generous programs are now available that can give you a fresh start. Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems. We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-550-9651. That's 800-550-9651. Tax Relief Advocates, real solutions for real people.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you that we keep us safe. Every girl deserves a chance to shine. That's the belief behind Forgiving for Living, Inc. Since 1999, this organization has been empowering at-risk girls ages 13 to 18, helping them overcome behavioral and mental health challenges. Founder Wendy Gladney's personal journey inspired the mission to give girls hope and purpose through the power of forgiveness. Through their ambassador program, workshops, and annual annual conference, Forgiving for Living has touched over 3,000 young lives, providing mentoring, life skills, training, and tools for building self-esteem and confidence. You can make a difference. Visit forgivingforliving.org to donate, volunteer, become a mentor, or find help for a young girl in need. Forgiving for Living, Inc., building brighter futures for young girls. Visit forgivingforliving.org today. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Autopsy Initiative provides a second autopsy free of charge for victims' families who have lost their loved ones due to a police-related death. The services offered through the initiative include the completion of a second autopsy, disclosure of preliminary findings, and a final autopsy report. A police-related death is when an individual is harmed by police officers using deadly force, which results in an individual's death. Police-related death includes in-custody deaths, including those that arise during contact with law enforcement officers during arrest, pursuit, booking, transport, or incarceration. The Autopsy Initiative has a team of board-certified pathologists on call. An autopsy request may be completed by anyone with a close relationship with the victim, which may include the victim's spouse, partner, relative, close friend, or lawyer. To request a free second autopsy for a victim of police violence, please visit knowyourrightscamp.com. That's knowyourrightscamp.com. Then click on Autopsy, then click on Request. At KBLA, we believe in justice for victims of police violence. We say their names, and we don't black down. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
It's never too early to start talking about money in realistic ways with your kids. JP Morgan Chase navigates how to educate your kids now about creating long-lasting, healthy money habits. Whether your kids are in elementary school, high school, or college, now is a great time to start a conversation about ways to create healthy money habits as they grow, ultimately benefiting their financial future. Talking about money in a realistic way to support your kids' lifestyle and dreams, your first banking account geared towards high school or college. It's never too early. Explaining the basics, what you earn and what you spend, building financial confidence starts with getting organized. Learning and practicing vital money skills now will stay with them for life. Tools they will have to stay on top of their finances and achieve their goals. This segment is sponsored by JP Morgan Chase.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580. This is Wealthy Wednesdays, and the one person who makes it wealthy is Reverend Dr. S. Tadieri. He is our consistent mainstay, clarity, both from the legal profession as well as the theological profession, to help us make it through the week and to make it over the hump. Dr. Uri, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Sir, you grade on the curve. I'm taking your class every semester.
Dr. Uri, I just want to make it clear that I wasn't trying to jam you. It's just that it seems to me that going into the midterm elections, there is a certain focus and clarity. Disrupt the democratic process. Try and pick up congressional seats. Undermine the Voting Rights Act from Texas to California to whatever other states are going to participate in mid-decennial redistricting. The tragic death of Charlie Kirk. The response, 35,000 interested potential chapters. They have a political focus, and that focus is the midterm. But our focus and our organizational focus are all of these other things, economic development, reparations. We got all these policy things we're fighting for. But it seems to me that vote, register to vote, register again to vote, double check your vote, vote, midterm, don't forget to vote, who you voting for, ought be a kind of narrow focus to save democracy. Yeah, but you got to vote. How you going to save democracy without voting? Are you going to vote early? You're going to vote early? You're going to vote often? Don't vote often. Let me take that one back. Vote once, but vote, and vote informed. It seems to me that that we just can't wait the month before the election to start talking about voting, that John Lewis, Martin Luther King Jr., and others, Viola Witzel, Swerner Goodman and Cheney, Reverend James Reeb, Jimmy Lee Jackson, James Orange, these luminaries stand large in our history, pointing the finger at the one faith object, the one thing that we had that wasn't destructive to other people, the idea of the vote. Dr. Uri, we need a single message. And we help me, Dr. Uri.
Yeah, so we need clarity on what our objectives are. When I stand to preach on Sunday morning, I've got 66 books of scripture at my disposal. The objective is not to just stay in one text, in one chapter, one book, but to make sure whatever text I take from whichever book I choose or I am directed to by the inspiration of God actually comes back to a fundamental question of how do I live my life with such meaning that my purpose cannot be avoided. This isn't about going to heaven. Heaven is taken care of. The question is, what do we do while we are on earth? And are we doing it with a seriousness that doesn't have us wasting time or worse? And so the comprehensive conversation around why voting matters, it's not detached from economic development, because if it's an executive branch official or if it's a legislature that has to pass a bill that deals with the use of public funds, that's money, right? Potholes in your street, sidewalks being paved, schools being funded, making sure that you have access to opportunity if you rely upon public transportation. All of that is a byproduct of who gets elected to make those decisions. How do we use or access the funding mechanisms that allow us to leverage resources to do community economic development? Because the largest probably landholder institutionally in the Black community is the Black church. And so we have to have these comprehensive conversations, but we also have to do, to your point, a better job of equipping our communities to be ready to respond when the time is right, recognizing that that's not always an every 4-year schedule. We have to be ready to vote in every local election, every state election, every national election, every special election. And we have to do it where we understand the issues are bigger than personalities, because on those same ballots are decisions about where public money will go to support private interests and outcomes. And so that's a clear thing. So we need a Barbara Arnwine to focus on the litigation side of protecting the right to vote. We need somebody in this space to say, no, you cannot just spend all of the public coffers in this closed manner and not include folks who are Black and brown. We got to have that. That's part of the conversation. But at the same time, the so what for those of us who are impacted by those types of decisions is simply this: are we ready to do what we have to do so that we can hold folks accountable when they don't do what we need them to do?
Dr. Uri, a final word of hope.
I've been thinking about this. Let me kind of drop this on you, and then we'll bounce. We're frustrated. We can't halfway see. Something's coming at us all the time. We're not sure how we're going to make it. We don't know where to turn. It is almost like we have been blinded by the decline in our condition. And in Mark's gospel, which is particularly unique because Mark was a Jewish gospel writer, he tells the story about this man who was blind, and the disciples brought him to Jesus, and Jesus immediately takes him by the hand and leads him, watch this, out of the city. Leads him out of the city to perform a healing. And the healing goes down like this. Jesus touches him in his eyes and asked him, what do you see? The man says, I see men like trees walking. Jesus touches him again and asks him, now what do you see? He says, I see everything as it truly is. Couple of things. Number one, we've got to walk with the divine in this moment. We've got to let, as Big Mama used to say, the Lord lead us. But then we have to let the Lord touch us so that we can see reality as it is. We cannot be in denial. But just because we're not in denial doesn't mean we should be overwhelmed, because the second touch allows us to not only see reality, but to also see possibility. We have to embrace our destiny and recognize that we have to acknowledge the problems, but we got to see what is possible.
I'm going to use that Mark Gospel. I think that leading the blind man out of the city, there's so many uses of that. Leading some of us who don't know how our rural brothers and sisters are living, and leading some of our rural brothers and sisters to better understand that we have more in common than we do in difference, is a factor in whether or not we're going to build a better country, a better society, and a more perfect union together. Dr. Yeri, thank you for being on the show.
Always good to be with you, my brother.
I simply wouldn't have a show without you. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580 more. See you tomorrow.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Tammy Eswick with BIN News Now.